5 people throwing stones, and it's not very effective. Like yesterday when we were heading back on the bridge, it didn't seem effective at all because the bridge is over us and much more higher, and we are lower, so he has the advantage of reaching us, and we don't have the advantage of reaching them as easily. But actually, we did it. Not me, probably, because I was not really very convinced. So most of the people here who are determined and courage did it.
I can hear that behind you. What are they saying? There is some shouting behind you. What are they saying?
Yeah, they are screaming, saying that, they won't topple Hosni Mubarak. And now they're saying that people want to topple the regime.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Ahmad Gamal, who's been in Tahrir or Liberation Square all night, and he's saying that he has had a very, very difficult night and that he is afraid at times, but that he pushes himself to stay there. All right, let's go over now to our Egypt desk, where Nazanin Sadri has been monitoring the latest online activity linked to the protests. What are they saying there?
Well, Veronica, we've been getting a constant stream of updates on Twitter directly from inside Egypt overnight. These are some of the latest posts. Blogger Safe tweets, everyone is awake, everyone peeking on balconies, nobody can sleep, everyone tense and tears. Sarah says, if we're not dying from gunfire, we're all dying a little on the inside. And a regular blogger, Allah, writes, the sad truth is no politician in this country is worthy of the support of these heroes. Well, these overnight clashes come after a day of confrontation on Wednesday. Take a look at these images posted on Facebook. The page says it's from a so-called makeshift hospital set up in Cairo on Wednesday to treat victims. As you can see, some disturbing pictures showing the aftermath of those clashes. Of course, we can't verify these images. Now, here's another interesting trend coming up on Twitter. Several people have posted these pictures of SMS messages that were sent to them from Vodafone Mobile Egypt. They appear to be spreading word of a pro-Mubarak protest, as well as urging Egypt's youth to listen to reason and confront the so-called criminals. It's unclear, of course, whether it's from Vodafone. The message is titled Egypt Lovers. Some subscribers say they did not receive it, but many who did feel very angry about them. And I'd just like to show you this graph showing the change in internet traffic in Egypt since restrictions were lifted on Wednesday. Egyptian authorities turned off the country's internet service on the evening of the 27th of January. That was believed to have been done to curb protesters organizing the so-called Day of Rage last Friday. We can see the near zero activity since then. And then take a look at this difference since Wednesday early morning, when internet providers started getting their services restored, internet reaching high levels again and getting closer to normal. And you can, of course, keep up to date with tweets from our reporters on the ground and other eyewitness accounts. There's a live blog on our website, updated 24 hours a day. That's it for now. Back to you, Veronica.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you again a bit later, of course, Nazanin. Back to our live picture from Egypt. Smoke billowing over the city, not that heavy at this point, but that is Tahrir Square, Liberation Square, which has seen intense activity overnight as heavy machine gun fire crackled across the crowd. What we've heard is that at least 5 people have been killed and many others injured. Conflicting reports there, but as far as we know, as far as we can confirm, at least 15 people have been wounded. Difficult to see beyond the smoke at the moment, but a bit earlier it was very clear that those makeshift barricades that had been put up by the anti-Mubarak demonstrators were not being challenged by the pro-Mubarak demonstrators, although they were throwing homemade fire bombs or Molotov cocktails beyond the barriers. And we were seeing those fires. There's one right there, just breaking out once again. Recapping the events as we enter day 10 of the standoff, those gunshots heard in and around Cairo's Liberation Square in the last few hours. We're hearing that 5 people have been killed, 15 people wounded following the day of violence as pro-Mubarak demonstrators clashed with pro-democracy protesters in the square. Eyewitnesses accusing the army of failing to intervene. International reaction, and the US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton spoken to Egypt's newly appointed Vice President Omar Suleiman, condemning the clashes as a, quote, shocking development. She says those responsible for the violence must be held accountable. All right, losing that graphic, and the picture is looking a bit grey, a bit blurry, but it's clear that the anti-Mubarak protesters are not shifting. We heard that resolve from a protester in the square, Ahmad Gamal, just a few minutes ago, saying that despite the fact that he was afraid, he kept pushing himself to stay there, to keep going on, even though the danger continues. And he was still hearing sporadic gunfire. We just heard it again there. I think that is some kind of a scuffle that we're seeing on the streets there as the camera tried to pan and find out where that crack of gunfire happened. There is a demonstrator being led away, or 2 people being led away. It's not clear who belongs to what group in this. It looks like he's being led to the army checkpoint. The tanks have withdrawn from Liberation Square, as we've been hearing. It looks as if the soldiers now, yes, the soldiers have detained someone there, and he's being made to kneel down and being dragged off beyond camera view behind one of those tanks. The tone has completely changed in the last 24 hours. As we've been discussing with our correspondent, it is very, very significant the way that this peaceful uprising, up until yesterday, has now become, it's turned ugly. Word of deaths, the full extent of the violence, we don't know yet. We're looking at these scenes, these scenes playing out from a distance on these live cameras. It's difficult to tell what's going on the ground itself and to verify everything. It must be incredibly tense to be there, and really shocking to see that the cosmopolitan city of Cairo, ancient cultural capital, of course, of the Middle East, busy commercial center, has been reduced to anarchy, lawlessness. It doesn't seem that anyone's in control of this situation, even though we're looking at this army contingent right now. Also watching with us on this is our group of correspondents who've been absolutely courageous and valiant in the face of being detained, arrested, equipment being confiscated. One of them's on the line at the moment. I don't know if you saw all that playing out, but we did just see what looked like an arrest.
Well, from what I could tell, there were 2 pro-anti, as you say, it's very hard to tell. I think because it was coming from this direction, one of the pro-Mubarak supporters threw a bottle at some man standing below him. Then they ran towards each other. It looked like the army was shooting in the air to try and stop them from reaching each other. There we go. That gunfire you're hearing, that's a soldier shooting into the air. So the 2 ran towards each other. The soldiers tried to intervene, and then they pulled them off, the soldier aiming the gun at their backs. Is this a sign now that maybe these soldiers are going to get a little bit more involved? They've moved their tanks a little closer towards the square. What we have seen is them stepping back throughout all of this, shooting intermittently when crowds get too close to them. But it's very clear now that the anti-government supporters have secured off the entire square. They've put up those steel barricades. And the government supporters now managed to jump over some of the railings protecting the anti-government demonstrators. It looks like they're trying to get in there, so we could probably prepare ourselves for more scuffles. But they've managed to put up two lines of defense. Firstly, that steel barricade at the front, and then some cars further back. And they've pretty much kept that for several hours now. The pro-government supporters are standing at the bottom end of October the 6th Bridge, and they're lobbing these Molotov cocktails into that crowd. It seems that they have an endless supply of these cocktails. That's prompting a lot of observers to believe that this is a state-sponsored, or certainly a regime-sponsored attack on anti-government demonstrators. We see that some anti-government demonstrators have taken over one of the rooftops, and the pro-government demonstrators are firing petrol bombs at the tree at the bottom. They're trying to set that tree alight to get the people off the rooftop. The anti-government demonstrators are saying that they are here to stay, and they're hoping now to swell their numbers. They're saying that they didn't have many people on the square, or as many as they could have, because they certainly didn't expect this to turn out as it did. And Veronica, it was a surprise to everybody. What went from a rather happy, jovial, celebratory style demonstration turned into this war zone.
The situation is not going to be resolved, won or lost possibly in the streets, but in the corridors of power, in negotiations between various political factions. We're seeing these shocking scenes being played out live on television. On the phone interviews, we're seeing shocking pictures in the newspapers and on the internet of injured people, bleeding, 5 people killed. Do you think that this is now a chance for political negotiation?
Well, I think that is probably the only way that this impasse is going to be resolved, because from a battlefront, certainly at the moment, the anti-government demonstrators have won. They've secured their turf, and it depends on what the pro-government supporters are going to do to try and change that status quo. So it'll have to be in the corridors of power. The U.S. has come down rather hard on the regime. Change must happen, and change must happen now. Hillary Clinton, as you mentioned, has said that these are shocking developments after so many days of peaceful demonstrations. But how much leverage does the U.S. have now over the Mubarak regime? Obviously, they've supported it because it's their face in the Middle East. But the problem with the anti-government demonstrators is that they don't have one political face, somebody who can lead them through this.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Our correspondent watching the scenes as they play out. You're watching the live pictures as well. We viewers, as well as our journalists, bearing witness to the events in Tahrir Square as the peaceful demonstrations have turned ugly. At least 5 people dead, at least 15 people injured. Live machine gun fire has been ringing out over Tahrir Square. We continue our coverage on Al Jazeera.